continue to dialogue with the community on the different aspects of our project. Moving forward, it's a great energy project, solar powered energy, to create a long duration battery scenario situation. And so with that, I don't want to really delve a lot into the kind of a hydrogen portion today. Tonight, I want to really focus on the water issues that have been brought in previous meetings we've had in this area. To again give you a position of the confidence and how water will affect or not affect the community. And so with that, we have retained John Antonio as one of our consultants since the start of the project. I'll let John do his credentials, but we do want you to participate. If you have questions, John is an expert in water. He's a state engineer for the state of New Mexico and 4 different administrations, both Democrat and Republican. So it's taking a pretty neutral position when it comes to water. It hasn't made it political in that sense, which I think is important. And with that, I just want to also, we have Bobby Ortega, the chairman of the board here. He does represent the area, but he's also the chairman of the board. And we have the mayor of the Village of Questa here, as well as village councilor Jason Gonzalez here. So we try to invite a lot of people. This is what we have this evening. So with that, I appreciate
Councilman Darrell.
participation. Thank you.
We also have Councilman Darrell Ortega.
Oh, Darrell. Okay, Councilman. You're brand new, so after about a year, I'll remember. 5 years, bro. So very, very happy to have you here, and it's good to see you. So thank you.
Thanks, Luis. Good evening, everybody. It's nice being here tonight and sharing some time here with you guys. Number one, I haven't driven up here for a couple of months. Last time I was here, I met some of you, but just shocked at how little snowpack we have up in the mountains up here, and it's concerning for me as a former water administrator, but just being a native New Mexican, it's difficult to see this snowpack in such a so small based on what we're typically used to, and I've seen. I've been in the water resource business for a long time. As Luis said, I've worked directly for 4 different governors. I actually started with Governor Johnson. I worked some with Governor Richardson, a little bit with Susana Martinez, and then about 3 years with Lujan Grisham. And it's just amazing how much we rely on the snowpack as our natural reservoir, and it's just getting smaller and smaller, and we're all seeing that, so it's a concern. One of the things I wanted to do today is look at just a somewhat of a simplified overview of water rights in New Mexico and how we're dealing with it. I know New Mexico water rights, as they are in the Western United States, are very confusing. A lot of times we have a prior appropriation state, which 18 Western states practice some form of prior appropriation, first in time, first in right. But it gets a little bit difficult in understanding what your protections are and how your existing water rights are protected. So I'm going to go through some what I hope are explanatory sort of concepts, and then we'll have plenty of time for questions at the end. But I kind of want to show what you guys are probably concerned with, and help you understand some of this. In New Mexico, water rights, they belong to the public. I think, as most of you know, they're subject to appropriation through a permit through the state engineer's office. And so an organization, individuals can get water rights, but they really don't own the water itself. They own the right to use that water, and that's through a permit from the state engineer's office. You can get a water right by putting water to beneficial use. The beneficial uses that you commonly think of are domestic or drinking water. If you need to run a small business, if there's industrial, commercial uses, there's a whole slew of purposive uses that are allowed for the purpose of use, which is a requirement for a water right. And then the most important rule in Western water law is first in time, first in right. If you started using a water right earlier, you have that senior status of water right. And that's more important than the purpose of use. So there's no hierarchy of use, as you would think. Some people say, well, is drinking water more important than growing an alfalfa field? Well, it could be for the community, but with respect to water rights, if you have a senior water right that's in agriculture and it's more senior than the drinking water right, then that takes precedence. And there's things in New Mexico law that I put in place and we've tried to put in place where it would allow for voluntary exchanges from an ag to a municipal use or other. So you still protect the senior water rights, but allow for a short-term transfer of water so that you can function during drought times, and that is important. These are the 6 elements that establish a water right. There's a priority date, a quantity, a point of diversion, a place of use, a purpose of use, and where the source is coming from. And these are all pretty self-explanatory. Again, priority is that priority date of when that water was put to beneficial use is so very, very important. The quantity is typically measured in acre feet. An acre foot of water is 326,000 gallons. In people that have water rights off of an acequia or a ditch might have water rights in terms of cubic feet per second, and those are written in some of the adjudications. And the mayordomos and others know those rules, and they understand how much water each person is entitled to. A point of diversion, where you're taking the water, is at a well or a ditch. The place of use is in an agricultural field or some other place of use that's commercial or industrial, domestic use. And then the purpose, what do you use it for? What do you use it for? And the source, whether or not it's from underground or typically surface water. How are they protected? No one, and please understand, this is really important. No one can take your water right away from you. There's impairment. There's impairment tests that have to be performed. Any changes in any use requires a permit from the Office of the State Engineer. So if someone wants to change how or where they use their water, like for instance, we're talking about the Questa mine and using some of their water rights and transferring those for green hydrogen production, they have to apply for a permit. So this isn't anything that happens automatically. We're going to look at water that's being used and has been used on the Questa mines, and then changing that place and purpose of use. And it's going to come out of a well, so the point of diversion would change. There's a well and a pipeline to where the hydrogen plant's going to be built, and I'll show you kind of a photo of that later on. But it's really important to understand that their rights are protected. The state engineer reviews every application to make sure there's enough water available. There are no existing water right, like a user, if you're in this area, that you'll be harmed. And then the change won't harm the community or environment. There's a public welfare test. The transfer can't be contrary to conservation or detrimental to the public welfare. And those are tests that every water rights transfer has to undergo. The special protections for local water users, again, acequias. When I first became state engineer in 2003, I helped change the law that basically gave the acequias a first right of refusal for any transfer off of an acequia ditch, which means if somebody wanted to change it, and as long as the acequia ditch had their bylaws in place, then they could not sell that water right off of the ditch unless everybody approved it within that acequia, or somebody. Typically what happens is somebody will say, okay, well, we're going to keep it in the ditch. We're going to buy it from you. If you're a water right owner, you have the right to protest any proposed change as long as you're an affected party. If you have standing in law, if you think your water right's going to be affected, you can file a protest on any application. And there's an administrative process that happens within the state engineer's office. And even if the state engineer makes a decision on any transfer, every decision that the state engineer makes is appealable to district court. It would go to, you can take it to the Court of Appeals, or to the New Mexico Supreme Court. So there's a lot of checks and balances out there. Obviously, the state engineers, with their expertise, they try to make sure that it doesn't have to go that far because it can get quite expensive for everybody. There are public notice periods. Again, if an application is filed, there's a notice that's put in general circulation newspapers within this general area, and you have 70 days to file a protest. Go ahead, you have a question?
Dan, the chairman of Congressional Commission, has an application already been filed for the transfer of the water right?
Not for this project that I'm aware of yet. No, because we're still trying to verify the point of diversion. What's happening is Kit Carson, I was KCEC, but Kit Carson Electric, they have to go in and they have to acquire property. They have to acquire a point of diversion and water rights in order to be able to put this development together. So all that's still to happen, and so everybody would be informed on that process. So again, going to special protections for local water users. Again, if you're a water rights owner, you have the right to protest any proposed change that might affect you. And I mentioned the hearing process. You have 70 days. The fastest really an application can get through the state engineer's office, if everything goes well, is about 6 to 8 months. That's a pretty long time. If it gets protested, then it goes through their hearing unit, and it could take 2 years to get. I mean, we don't like that to happen, especially on a project that's this important for this community. We're hopeful that we can take and answer all your questions up front, so people don't have to protest, so we can get the transfer done quickly. So we're not delaying really what's going to be a very nice project for this community, a nice economic development opportunity, and so on and so forth. But again, there's the protest period. The state engineer, there's a hearing unit that a application that gets protested goes to the hearing unit. They set up a hearing. You can actually go through what they call an ADR process, alternate dispute resolution. So you can shorten some of those times by getting all the parties together and saying, okay, what are your concerns? We'll address those concerns. And we don't just do this by guessing. We actually have hydrologists that are looking at impairment. Even if there's not a protest, the state engineer's office, their hydrology bureau, actually does an impairment analysis, and they look at all the wells within an area, all the surface rights within an area. They put in their models a pumping regime which says, okay, if we're going to use water for the next 20 years out of this well, and it's going to be X amount of acre feet, then they're going to run that model, and they're going to show the drawdown effect of that pumping and how it reaches out and could affect other groundwater rights or surface water owners.
When will that be?
That'll be before the permit gets approved.
Right, so when will that be?
Whenever.
Should we expect to be able to see the impairment analysis?
Well, so that'll be part of the permit. Once the permit's filed, there's a 70-day period of notice and a protest period. And then once you get past that 70-day, if there's a protest, it gets the state engineer's office, it goes to them. Like I said, even if there's not a protest, the state engineer's office, after that 70 days, will start looking at evaluating that transfer to make sure that it's not going to do any impairment. So when I said 6 to 8 months, so getting back to your question essentially is, hey, if everything goes perfect, it might take 6 to 8 months for the whole thing to happen. The whole process from filing a permit to actually being able to divert the water.
Right, because we were talking about two different things. There's the process for permitting that you're talking about. There's also the process for a protest.
And they're one and the same.
Different.
Well, no, they're one and the same. So the permit is not issued until you go through the administrative process. So it's the hearing process. Okay, let me back up because it looks like you're confused. Okay, so let's say we're going to close, we're trying to close on a point of diversion, and purchase a well that Chevron owns right now and trying to transfer some of that water into that particular well, right? Okay, so there'll be an application that's filed. And this project in particular needs about 47 acre feet. That's not a lot of water. They're going to try to actually transfer 100 acre feet in case there's other expansion or other things. So the permit's going to be for 100 acre feet. Okay, so that'll be filed. That'll go in the newspapers. After 70 days, the state engineer will look at all the protests that are there. All the protestants will get informed. They'll set up a hearing. They'll set up a hearing before the state engineer's hearing officer. They'll set up a hearing, and everybody will be informed of that hearing. And so there's discovery from the protested parties. There'll be hearings, and there's a process that's pretty well set out in law and determine whether or not protestants want to move forward. Sometimes protestants decide to drop out. So it goes along this route until you have a hearing from the state engineer's office, and then the state engineer's hearing officer will make a recommendation on whether or not to approve or to deny the permit based on what the Water Rights Division had an analysis that the hydrologists have done. If they show an impairment, they're saying, hey, we can approve this, but it's affecting these two water rights. And so that'll all come out in the analysis. And so so the state engineer at that point can say, okay, we're going to deny this. We're going to deny this because we think there's impairment. And then the state engineer becomes the aggrieved party. And so they can be, the state engineer can contest this. I'm not saying this very well. Not the state engineer, but the person that's the applicant can say, okay, I'm an aggrieved party. I'm going to contest this because I think we can solve this problem, or we don't agree with the experts that you put forth. So there's a give and take, and there's an analysis. If the permit is actually approved and there's an aggrieved party, then the aggrieved party can file an aggrievable and say, hey, we don't think the state engineer's analysis was right. And so it's this iterative process that goes on and on.
Okay. So thank you so much for backing up and sharing that, because I think it's important. And I do recall in previous meetings when I've asked really specific questions about the NEPA process, and Luis and I have had some talks, and if you've been attending these meetings, you know what I'm talking about. And what they said was, hey, look, the state engineers, the last meeting you said, they go through their own process, whether or not there's a national or state NEPA process happening. So what I think you just explained to me is exactly that. So you're filling in some of the gaps for some of us that have been following along with that. Just real specifically within that process, where exactly is it that we would get, the local people would get a chance to see that apparent, the analysis where the state engineer makes their decision to deny or say go ahead, to say there's an impairment or not? Is there a place?
There's an actual hearing in front of a hearing examiner. And so the Water Rights Division will have its case. The protestants will have their case and their experts. And
so there has to be protestants. Okay.
There doesn't have to be, but in this case, if there's not, the Water Rights Division is still going to do the impairment analysis.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for those of us that want to see that impairment analysis, I'm just trying to make sure that I'm following the process, because there's certain things you're saying that are going to get posted, but it seems like that's something that unless I show up at the hearing. Well,
the results will be shared at the actual hearing that the state engineer's office has.
So there's not then as in a normal NEPA process, so maybe something that's different from that kind of process to the state engineer's analysis process, is that it doesn't seem like there's a place for public comment, where we get to look at that document and look at the analysis and comment back. Well,
you'll be able to, and that's why you can appeal any of the state engineer's decision.
So that's
it's a de novo
your
appeal.
way of commenting back, instead of a comment period would be then actually to become a protestant if you have water rights. And if you don't have water rights.
And if you're an aggrieved party, because the state engineer does a very thorough analysis.
Mhm. Yeah,
And
I
there's,
just wanna see
and
it.
and sometimes that doesn't matter. The locals will say, well, we don't care. We want our own attorney, we want our own expert, and we're gonna challenge this to the district court.
Right,
It happens.
It does.
And sometimes you win at district court because there's a judge that's more concerned about the local issues. I can tell you, when I was state engineer, when it went to the Court of Appeals or New Mexico Supreme Court, we very rarely have lost
mhm.
a case. So because there's a rigorous analysis.
Different times.
But what I'm saying is there's plenty of opportunity for you to see the results and how that's affected.
Plenty?
When?
Plenty. I keep asking exactly, and you said at the hearing, and now you're saying plenty. So, like,
So-
could you be more specific? I'm sorry to press you on this, but it's so important, especially because, and I don't mean to be a hog, but I've been, in time and questioning, but I've been very specific here at council meetings as well as informational meetings that I'm inquiring about the NEPA process because it is changing under this Trump administration. And at the time, it was not clear. At the last meeting, I said, when's the next meeting? We have more questions. We have more questions specifically. It's months later, here we are, but we still don't have information about if that's going to get fast-tracked and it's not happening, or it's not happening because this is already an existing site. Or, so what that leaves me as a person who does not have water rights, but does have property with a well, so I'm tapped into that system. How can I be involved in this democratic process that we've got set up here in our country to be informed of what is exactly happening in that analysis, so I can look at it and say, hey, here are my concerns, just like we did on the trail system, right? It went through a local NEPA process, on track, on normal. Big industry right now, from what Luis has been telling me, is that it's a lot of it is fast-tracked in this administration. Without that NEPA process and a chance for people to get the documents, see them themselves, reply back, the people applying to have to then look at that information and answer to the people the questions that they have raised. If that is not going to happen, and what we are relying on, which is what you told me in the last meeting, is the state engineer process that I have just pulled out of you step by step and taken notes here, and you still are not telling us exactly.
Oh, well, I think I am. I don't think you're listening. And,
Okay, maybe
and,
I'm not.
and so let me go back.
How you can make a protest if you can't see the data
Exactly.
of the hearing. You
Don't tell
should
me
have
that.
time to see the hydrologist's report and make a cogent protest before you do a hearing.
Okay, so
That's not.
this is all,
fair.
there is due process. It's all in state law. You have 70 days to file a protest. That doesn't commit you to anything. It's like $5 to file a protest.
How do you protest if you haven't seen any information? That's what I keep asking. I am listening, sir. I guarantee you, I'm a teacher. I'm highly educated. I've been through this kind of process.
Because this is
before.
the
I want to
this
learn.
is the process.
I want to learn. I'm
Okay,
taking
so
notes.
if you think it's going to affect you, then you file a protest. If you think it's going to affect you, then the analysis happens. And at any point in time, when you have a hearing, there's always protestants that drop out because they go, hey, there's no effects here, because you see the data at the hearing. The hearing officers that can share that information with you.
So wait a second. So all the entire public is invited to the hearing for public comment.
All of the people that are concerned. Think about this. It's an administrative process,
I'm asking.
right?
the public.
It's an administrative process. You're part of the public. If you think that you have a claim or a protest, then you file that protest, and then you're part of the state engineer's administrative hearing process. Okay? You're part of it.
And you have to be a water right holder in order to protest.
You have to have standing as a water right owner.
Okay,
Yeah.
so anybody who just has property with a well has no
You have standing.
chance. Okay, thanks for making that clear.
You have standing.
That's really important. And we're not too far off, we're going deep. We are not tangenting, we are going deep to the heart of it, and it's starting to get real.
So first thing is, This is not part of the legal process. The national process,
I understand.
it is separate.
I understand.
And you're repeating the NEPA process. That's by the feds. And those of you who watch this administration has fast-tracked the NEPA. The NEPA has already been submitted under the fast-track process and approved for the project that it has been. I just want to kind of get us back on track, kind of crossing the NEPA with the state. There's
And I explained why, I prefaced earlier, this reported why, I brought that up, I'm very clear and separate. This is supposed to support the public if NEPA isn't happening, but we're finding out that if it's not, unless you have water rights and you protest on thinking that you might have a plan.
NEPA has, it's not that it didn't happen.
Okay.
It's occurred. And Kit Carson is in compliance with the federal.
You pretty much showed us that in the last meeting,
So
too.
that's it.
It happened last fall.
And
There's no environmental
the
process.
second is based on what John was explaining. That's a process from the state engineer's
I
office,
understand.
not from the co.
Yep.
So we have to comply with whatever their protocols are when they have a hearing. Right, so some of the questions that you're asking, really on a question that Kit Carson is going to control, it's going to be the state engineer and whatever hearing officer that they assign to the group.
Mm-hmm, I did it, I wrote it all down.
Right,
Following
so I
you
just want to
100%.
say that it's going to come out of,
No, but that doesn't change what the heart of what I was trying to get to with that, Luis, with all due respect, is that I'm wanting to know if the NEPA process isn't happening, you told us this is the way that public can be involved. I just wanted to pull out of it exactly where can be the public be involved. And the answer to that, as far as I think we're hearing, means that is if you have water rights and if you protest according to if you think you might have a claim. So for those of us that have that, we're getting to the bottom line. I think, could you confirm for me that then the general public here in this community has no opportunity to look at an impairment analysis?
That's not
to
true.
say anything, when then? Okay, because we've asked
Yeah.
multiple times, you said at the hearings. And so if
You're doing run-on questions. You're doing run-on questions.
I'm not doing
You're
run-on.
conflating NEPA with water rights. And it's not.
Show the people the grant, because inside the grant, there are requirements to show and improve outside the Department of Energy, but requirements, solid requirements to show what's happening with the water. So can you show the people the grant that got y'all the money?
So within the grant, where's the chief of the USDA, not the Department of Energy. So we can show you the application and outlining what the purpose of the project was at that one.
No, the grant itself,
So that's the application.
okay?
That's the application.
No, I'll look elsewhere then, thank you. Thank
Let me just say something. As the chairman of the Kit Carson Board, I just want to say that we put this meeting together this evening so that we could make a presentation with what we consider an expert on water rights to give information to the community. And so that's what we want to do tonight. We want to give everybody a chance to speak. So I think you've had your chance. We're going to move around so everybody can speak.
And for the record, let it be known that they have still neither answered the question that I had to get to,
Perfect.
which is where can the public see analysis
Okay.
and have an opportunity
Okay,
to
so
say anything.
you'll get.
Thank you so much, and like I said.
We have other people that want to speak.
With all due respect, I want to thank you. I did say I didn't want to be a hog, but that this is something in 3 meetings that I've been trying to get answers to. 3 meetings, 4 now.
We have a lot of folks that have questions. We're going to try to get through this. I think John has more information to go down. And so again, the other thing, the meeting tonight is on the water control. That's what we're going to focus on tonight. And so there's a lot of questions, and as we go, we'll answer them. How do you want to handle that, John? Do you want questions now or after you're done with the presentation?
I was thinking we were going to take a few at a time, but why don't I go through my presentation and I'll stay as long as you want. I really take offense that you say I didn't answer the question. You're not listening to the answer. And so so there's an
To get this approved,
why is the newspaper and the Channel 7 are saying groundbreaking is taking place?
Yeah, exactly.
Because it is.
Oh, it's taking place without the approval of
Exactly.
Well, the water component comes in.
It's so much, it's getting worse.
So, anyway, I've answered your question. I've answered your question. Okay, let's move on, and then we'll go.
Nonsense.
Alexis, do you have a water question?
I have a community question. Is this being recorded?
Yes.
I believe so. I think it's what's the newspaper, sure.
Yep.
I believe so. We're not trying to.
Tonight in our community, we're having a very large volunteer fire meeting.
Okay.
And there's about 30, 40 people that would be here. If they didn't have, if we weren't involved in this meeting, so I want to make sure that everything that is said can be shared with our community.
Two reporters are recording it, the OSC is not recording it themselves. Just to be clear, two reporters are recording it, the OSC themselves is not recording it.
Okay.
Kit Carson's not recording this.
This is the Kit
Two
Carson
reporters
meeting.
are.
Okay. We're making this meeting available for the community. Village of Questa has allowed us to host this meeting. So let's just make that clear. John D'Antonio is a consultant for electrical law on water issues. And we want to present a presentation on how water is or is not affected on this proposed project. That's as simple as it gets. And we do want to hear your questions. Nobody's going to be excluded. Okay?
Bobby, I think it's important that Kit Carson consultant does not represent the state engineer's office.
Good. That's a good point.
But we are all members of Kit Carson, because we all have a meter, so he actually represents all of us.
That's all right.
And we're trying to get it.
All right, you had your word, ma'am. We're going to take one question from one more business, then we're going to move on to the presentation.
I'm gonna take it from this thing, I don't know her name, but if there's an environmental assessment on it, and if there's already a need one, which there isn't, because it requires public comment, requires expedited, trumpers or no trumpers.
Yeah.
And how can you do an environmental assessment without recognizing that you're gonna be using 20 million gallons of water annually on this project? That has to be a key element in any environmental assessment, in any NEPA process. This is a water credit budget, we're talking about 20 million gallons annually, where, Senor D'Antonio, you know what, Chevron went around and did an administrative thing. This hasn't gone to court, whether Chevron has these water or not, but let me finish. Okay, so these water rights have never been used. They are dry, they've never, ever been used. So now, we've got no snow cap, which everybody recognizes, the opponent también, and that recharges the groundwater. We don't know the number of the well, so we can assess which affected, sections are being affected. And then, if every drop of water in New Mexico is allocated, right, Senor D'Antonio? Hey, John, every drop of water in New Mexico is already allocated, right? Yes or no?
Every drop of water is essentially allocated.
Okay, so here comes Chevron with brand new water rights, and if everything is allocated, well, this is 100% plus. And we don't have the plus, we don't even have the 100%. We're down to what, about 39% up in the snow cap? So how, this does not make sense. You can't have an environment, we'd like to see the environmental assessment. You say that's done, make it public. You say there's a NEPA process, make it public. You say that these water rights are there, well, we're not so sure on that. And you won't even give us the number of the what?
We have the number, I have it in my presentation. I have everything in his presentation. If you let me do the presentation, maybe I'll answer some of your questions.
Okay, let's move on. Let's move on. Raise your hand to be recognized.
And again, I just want to reiterate, I am not representing the state engineer's office. And the state engineer's office will get involved. The way the state engineer's office gets involved is through the application filing. And just to reiterate so that I'm answering the question, the state engineer's office, even if none of you guys protested, they still do an impairment analysis.
Nobody sees.
They still do an impairment analysis. Because if you want to go see it, I can guarantee you, I can let you go see it. I can get you in the door to let you go see it. Anybody can do that.
So I think they want published documents that you, for this, you just send out.
There are documents that are gonna be, the application hasn't even been filed yet. So in order to start, and again, you guys, I'm talking about an administrative process that's been around and it's designed to protect the water right owner. So there's an application, they can't just go in and start doing this. KCEC can't go in and divert water and start doing green hydrogen without valid water right. That's where the state engineer's office comes in and does an impairment analysis based on their modeling. So that's all to be done. That's all to be done, and they're not going to approve. They can deny it if there's impairment. They'll outright deny it. They can outright deny it if there's not adequate water or if it causes impairment. Those are the three things the state engineer by law has to do. He's got to check for impairment. They've got to check whether or not it's contrary to conservation within the state or detrimental to the public welfare. That's going to be done. That's going to be done. There's no free token here for anybody to use water. There's going to be an analysis done. Trust me, there's going to be an analysis done. Let me move forward.
Mayor, did you have a question? Mayor.
I don't know if this answers your question, though. Because we had to do this for the village, we been donated 120 acre feet of water. It's gonna be public, it's gonna be published as a public way when this happens. It's not happening yet, but you'll see the public hearing announced when it does happen.
Okay. Go ahead, John. Go ahead.
Can I ask a question?
One last one,
Go ahead.
okay?
Hey, this may be a little technical question, okay? And I'm not sure this meeting is around to address that issue. What I want to know is, once you have the hydrogen, how are you going to produce the electricity?
So that
What process are you using?
this is not that meeting. Yeah, this
I
is
know,
not.
I know, but does anybody know?
Yes, they do. They have their.
Well, then answer me. How is it being processed?
So let me suggest that this is the water. So Luis will make time to visit with you after the meeting to address that question. We already discussed it previously, but
No, you haven't. Yes, we have. No, you haven't. How do you know all your meetings? I didn't hear. You said electrolysis. Is that how you're doing it? That's how you're making the hydrogen. How are you going to remake the electricity?
so this is not that meeting, okay? Sorry. Go ahead, John.
Okay. So now let's talk about the Questa mine water rights transfer here, okay? For first bullet there, any transfer of water rights from the Questa mine for green hydrogen production has to go through the same strict review that I just talked about. The state engineer and local water right owners will make sure that no existing water right owner is harmed, the community's public welfare is protected, and there is transparency and opportunity for public input. I'm hearing an argument against what is allowed for this process, and you guys, trust me, there is public input through this whole process. That's why it goes through an administrative hearing. Enforcement accountability, there aren't any penalties. There are penalties for anyone who violates water right rules. And the state engineer actually has a bill that's going to be introduced this year for enhancing the penalties for illegal use of water and overuse of water. They're not enough actually to deter some people. Some people say, hey, we'll take the penalty, and that's not the way it should be. They should be, penalized for using it illegally. The state engineer's office is responsible for making sure everyone follows the law and that your rights are protected. And here's the bottom line for the Questa residents here. Your water rights are protected by law. Any new use, like the green hydrogen production, must not harm existing water rights. There's strong checks, public processes, and local protections in place to make sure your water stays available for you, your family, and your community. If you have concerns, you have the right to participate in the process and make your voice heard. I'm just reiterating that. Now, I took some things out. I see you laughing, but I spent my whole career defending your water rights and the safety of water rights in the state of New Mexico, and I'm trying to convey that message to you. So, give me a little bit of deference here. I'm not some Joe that just walked off the street, okay?
If hydrogen fuel cells are used, the water that comes
We're
out of
not
that
talking
can be
about, that's a different technical process that we're not talking about.
Okay.
Okay.
Electricity, go back into the grid, you get the exhaust for a hydrogen fuel cell is water. That water can be reused, but the only problem is, the reason it's not being used is because it's costly to do it.
Thank you.
That is the only reason. Anybody in here can research that, it's true.
Okay,
Let's move on.
okay.
Let's move on.
That's a different chapter, okay?
Yeah.
So you guys have you have regional water plans. There's 16 regional water planning entities within the state of New Mexico. The Taos Regional Water Plan, the last time it was done is in 2016, which it's getting a little long in the tooth here. So again, you guys probably need to do a redo of your regional water plan. But here's the important piece. 80% of the water supply in this area is provided by surface water. The primary surface water feature in the region is the Rio Grande and its tributaries, and most important of which are on this slide here. You guys are all familiar with these. These are your local surface water areas: Costilla Creek, Cabresto, Red River, the Rio Hondo, Rio Lucero, Rio Pueblo de Taos, Rio Fernando de Taos, Rio Grande del Rancho, Rio Pueblo, and the Rio Santa Barbara. So again, out of that regional water plan, the availability of water from the Rio Grande stream system is limited by the terms of the Rio Grande Compact. There's issues that we have to be concerned with on the compact issues. And I'm not going to go through this whole thing, and this will be available for you guys to use. We'll make sure you guys get this presentation. The sole declared underground water basin, a declared underground water basin means the state engineer's office said, okay, in order for you to take water from this underground basin, you need a permit from the state engineer. And this is the upper Rio Grande underground water basin. There's more than 300 acequias that are present in the region. The pueblos are here. The second bullet there, I think is so important, is the threat of wildfire. I think that's one of the things that's even overlooked a little bit in this project is some of the water that's going to be used for this project is going to be in a storage tank to mitigate the effects of wildfire, which I think is hugely important for this community. So that's an important opportunity to have water that's available to be able to do this. And I won't get into that. I know Luis has some questions or some answers for that if there are questions later. Again, a question maybe that you asked, sir, the Rio Grande's fully appropriated. There's no new diversions of surface water or groundwater. It requires the transfer of a valid right or application for even the new domestic or livestock well. The availability of water rights is a limiting factor in so many areas within the state of New Mexico. That's why there's this application process. In this 2016 plan, it was noted that the Village of Questa does not have adequate water rights to support its current and future needs and is actively seeking additional water rights. It's pretty important not to have water rights for growth, and how do you grow economically, but how do you grow responsibly? And that's what the state engineer's process does. It allows you to grow responsibly based on the water that's going to be used. So now let's get into the Chevron, the water rights settlement between Chevron and the state engineer's office. That first bullet, I know that's one of the things. Chevron had significant amount of unproven water rights. That was a concern for the state engineer's office. So they went into a settlement agreement between Chevron and the state engineer, and it was about a year ago. It was January 17th of 2025. There was a settlement agreement between the state engineer and Chevron. And Chevron may apply to the state engineer so the water rights they were granted, I say granted, recognized based on some interaction. And I was not involved in those negotiations. It was right after I had left. But the place of use and point of diversion, they were authorized to be able to transfer some of their water rights. They're adjudicated water rights that they have. A full accounting of the use of Chevron's rights. The other concern is, and you said they're not using any water. Well, they're using quite a bit of water in their reclamation and remediation of the mines over there. So the cleanup process is requiring them to pump quite a bit of water in order to be able to clean the sites that are over there. So let's get a little bit into, and this is a really, I spent a couple of hours yesterday going over this agreement, and of course the attorneys, when they get involved with it, it gets pretty, gets really complicated and a little bit confusing when you start referring back and forth, but I tried to put it in table form so that it was a little bit clearer. There were 3 sections in that settlement agreement. There was disputed Sunshine Valley rights, that was in section 1. Section 2 was transfer of what they called undisputed Sunshine Valley rights. And then in section 3, they had future disputed rights. So the first column there, and just talking about this 127 acre feet, there's a transfer to the Village of Questa, 120 acre feet. The applications have been filed. I don't think they've been approved yet, and John, I think they're going still through the process. And then there was another 7 acre feet that were filed. Those applications are in process right now. Those are the disputed Sunshine Valley rights. The second column there is the undisputed rights. There were 145 acre feet that are transferred to 9 of the local mutual domestics. And so that's in process now, because the recognition was the mutual domestics need water rights in order for them to be able to grow. I mean, there's so many mutual domestics in New Mexico that don't have adequate water rights, and they start adding connections, and it's like, hell, where are we going to get the water to add these other connections? And so this was part of the agreement. The state engineer said, okay, if you need to transfer some of these water rights, and it's 145 acre feet to these 9 mutual domestics. That application has been filed and is in front of the state engineer's office. The middle square there where it says 300 acre feet, that's part of the agreement that said there's no time limitation to Questa or Red River transfer. So they specifically said these are 300 acre feet that are undisputed, but in order for you to use them, you have to transfer them to the Village of Questa or the Red River area. You can't use them anywhere else. That's for economic development. The concern was how does this community, survive the closing of the mines? We lost a lot of jobs, a lot of economic ability. So that water, 300 acre feet, can be transferred. That's some of the water. That might be where the water comes from. That 100 acre feet of transfer that comes for this project. Okay, this has been essentially. This settlement agreement is like an adjudication that recognizes these water rights for Chevron. Chevron is going to, we hope, we haven't finished it yet, and I don't want to speak out of turn, but that's the plan, is to be able to use some of these water rights. There's 819 acre feet here, and this one is where it's a little confusing. There's they're calling these undisputed, again, Sunshine Valley rights that aren't needed to complete remediation. So they set aside an amount of water rights that said, okay, we know you're gonna have to pump and treat and clean this thing up. Let's keep these water rights available for that process. And at some point in time, if everything's done and cleaned up, and then maybe that become a pool of water for this community to use, but I'm not gonna let you use it until, and that's the way I read the agreement. There could be a little bit of some nuances in there. And then you just go to the last column, the future disputed section 3. There's no remaining disputed based, and then this is the easy way to do it. That one becomes a moot point because Questa, they already filed that 127 acre foot application. So there's no more of those disputed water rights are no longer available if that application goes through. So that first box on the right side, this one here, becomes a moot point if this transfer happens. This last box down here, there's an approved, they have to go through an approved return flow plan to maximize the use of these undisputed rights. So the state engineer allows for return flow plans for almost anybody if you can show that if you treat water and it's to a certain quality and you put it back into a river. City of Albuquerque does this all the time, right? They have a certain amount of water rights but they clean them and put them back into the river where Isleta Pueblo is, and they get a credit as a return flow. So it allows you to consumptively use more water. So this Chevron State Engineer Agreement, it's not some hidden document. It's something that anybody can look at. It quantifies those water rights, but the intent and the important intent is how can we keep those water rights in this community for the benefit of this community? And that's why this green hydrogen project to use some of those water rights is really a good thing for the community. And I'll show you what we have to go through in order for that to happen. So the other thing I talked about was the remediation and reclamation, right? And so Daniel B. Stevens, which is an associate, it's a very credible hydrology firm here in the state of New Mexico. They were tasked with doing this report on the mines, and I tried to capture this in this one slide. These are the results of 2024. They have to do a report every 5 years to the state engineer's office. This one was done at the end of 2024, and so you can see that there's this cleanup operation for the remediation and reclamation. There's surface. The first one is surface-based mine dewatering system. If you go to the third column, there's 324 acre-feet that has been pumped. That's per year. That's pumped from there to clean that process up. The lower Sulph Gulch groundwater extraction was 127.7 acre-feet pumped in 2024. And then let's go down to the last one, the Southwest groundwater extraction system, 15.9 acre-feet a year. So if you look at 467.6 acre-feet of water, they're pumping that much water right now to clean the mines up. Okay, can we wait? Okay.
That water is in the tunnels of the mine and under the Superfund, that has to be cleaned. So you built that, or Chevron built the treatment plant upstream, and now you're pumping the groundwater that's flooding the tunnels that's full of arsenic, cadmium, chromium, cyanide, and all this stuff. And not all of it's going to the treatment plant. Most of it's going to the Red River.
Well, if that's happening, then
And we're talking over here where this project is going to be. Where is the water coming from there?
well, okay, so a couple things. If that's actually happening, I'd be surprised because the New Mexico Environment Department has discharge permit requirements and they watch these Superfund sites like a hawk. So I'm not saying you're wrong, but I'm not able to stand up here and defend New Mexico Environment Department, but there's discharge permit requirements. They have, if you look at the last column, there's over 1,300 acre-feet of treated water that's being treated through the wastewater treatment plant. That becomes a source of water if it's clean enough for a fit-for-purpose use. Is it clean enough? When it's discharged? It's got to be. It's got to comply with the Mexico Environment Department's rules and regulations on their constituencies and how it gets discharged through their permits. And those are strictly enforced permits. So what I'm showing you here is Chevron's using water, a heck of a lot of water, and they're cleaning up the site. And at some point in time, this water, and my reading on this, it might be a really good idea at some point is to use the treated wastewater for something beneficial, because that's otherwise that's going there's issues there. And one of the concerns you say it's going into the Red River. There's requirements. You just can't go in, and unless you're getting a return flow credit or something, there's requirements on the quantity of water that the state engineer has to check on. So there's probably some missing points here. But what I wanted to show you here tonight is Chevron's using water. They're cleaning it up, and they're trying to make water available for the community. That's the kind of the takeaway from this. Let me go to the next one. So again, getting back to what this project's going to use, this green hydrogen project is using is estimated to use 47 acre-feet a year, which equates to about 15 million gallons a year. It sounds like a lot, right? But let me just show you some of the entities that use that much water, and I think you'd be kind of surprised. You know, a small to mid-sized food and beverage processing plant uses about that much water. If they're looking at packaging foods, bottled beverages, or dairy products, that requires 10 to 20 million gallons per year for washing, cooking, mixing. Commercial laundries, industrial laundromats serving hospitals, hotels, uniform services, they use 10 to 15 million acre feet annually. Golf courses, if it's a temperate climate, they can use around 50 million acre feet per year. Again, the reason I'm showing you this is like, let's put it in perspective, is this water, and we're talking being used for green hydrogen to create redundancies for power, things that are really important to this community. It's a valuable use of that water. I've got some more here, some hotels and resorts, a medium-sized hotel with several hundred guest rooms, pools, landscaping. They use about that much. Small manufacturing.
Oh, you did, okay.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's a continued slide. Small manufacturing facilities, and you can read it. The bottling or beverage distribution centers use that much. So again, I'm trying to put in perspective that this green hydrogen, it's like, okay, let's not build another golf course. Let's do a green hydrogen project. I mean, I'm a golfer, but if I lived up here, I'd much rather have a green hydrogen plant that was contributing to this, to the welfare of this community. So let me get into this one now. Settlement agreement, again, based on, I think this might be the second one's the important one, 100 acre feet transferred from Chevron's Sunshine Valley rights. That's the 300 that I showed you. That's likely where that water right would probably come from. That's already been established. And they'll have to file an application to change place and purpose of use. And it's got to go through the process to make sure it's not impairing any water rights. Now, I want to show you this because you have questions. We haven't identified the well and a lot of other things. The existing well, this RG 14117, POD 18, appointed delivered 18. The reason that it's got an appendix there, a number, is because there are several wells that probably have an RG 14117 designation, and as they add additional wells in an area, they'll add different points of diversion, and they'll look at this. But this well it's an existing well. It's 530 feet deep. It's got a 9.5 inch casing. The estimated yield is about 600 gallons per minute. And the plan, if again, this goes through, there's a mile pipeline that would be constructed from that point of diversion. And so if you look at here, and if you can see my pointer here, I hope it's showing up on the screen. You can see this point of diversion, this RG 14117 pod 18 is located right here. We've kind of penciled in a pipeline location. This is about a mile, 1.1 miles of pipeline. If you look through here to go to this site, this 300 plus acre site, that's where this green hydrogen plant and the solar is anticipated to be. That's the location. This is the point of diversion. When they file an application, they'll file that as the point of diversion. The place of use will be this use here, and the purpose of use will be for commercial purposes, industrial purposes, green hydrogen, and the solar facility. And so that application has yet to be filed, but this is what it's anticipated to be. So I took a blow up of this map to try to answer more of your questions here. That RG 1417, and it's really small print, but that's the best I could do with this to get this much on this particular slide. That 14117 pod 18 is right here. So it doesn't show the place of use up here. But what I wanted to show on this were wells that were in the vicinity. So all these wells, so these numbers that are in white, these RG 10479, RG 1147, these are all wells that are within a mile radius of that point of diversion. Okay, all these wells here. And you can see if you can see down here, Cabresto Ditch is down here. So the surface water areas are down here. The middle ditch, the Llano and all these, the ditches are all over here. So they're more than a mile away from this particular point of diversion. What I want to show you is all those points of diversion. So there's about 21 points of diversion that are within 1 mile of that well that's anticipated to be used. There's only 4 wells that are domestic wells. Here's the distance. So here's the file number, the distance, 9/10 of a mile for these two. This RG 1157 and RG 1047 are 8/10 of a mile. These are the owners that are listed with the state engineer's record. They're all domestic well. This one's a domestic well that was expired. You can see how deep the wells were, 200 feet with a 4.5-inch casing. This was a 3 acre-foot domestic well, 74 feet deep, 6-inch casing. This one is a domestic 3 acre-foot well, 250 foot deep, 6-inch casing. And so my point here is that those wells that are within that mile, there's only these domestic wells. In cases where there's impairment on a domestic well, if it's going to affect a domestic well, the permittee typically says, okay, if we do affect your well, we'll help you deepen your well so you can access that water surface if it gets affected. Those are the numbers that come out of an impairment analysis. Let me show you the rest of them. So the rest of these are the RG 94900 are monitor wells. They're pretty deep, 435 to 455 feet deep. These here, small casings and small yields. Those are monitor wells that Chevron uses to look at pollution, other things, right? What's really amazing is the rest of these wells, and you can see how far they are away, they're all piezometers. And there's a plugging plan that was filed from the state engineer's office. They've all been plugged to date. So all these, they're RG 99843. They go from, pod 1 to, pod 22. Again, going back and looking at the map here, these clusters here where you see there's 6 wells here. These are all piezometers. Here's the dam, right? This is you can see the kind of the layout of the dam here. These are monitor wells looking at movement of water. So there's 6 wells here, 2 here, 3 here. There's 2 down here. And if we want to go back, let me show you where the domestics are. The 51,785. I think is right here, 51,785. So that's one of the domestic wells. You can see it's almost a whole mile away from this point of diversion. So the likelihood is there's not going to be impairment to people's water rights, the surface water rights, and the ones that I would be concerned with are surface water rights for irrigators. But Cabresto Dam's right there. The irrigation ditches get their water from Cabresto Dam. The surface water pumping doesn't really have, it doesn't have time to go, and the extent of it is to affect the surface water because it's such a quick pulse from the Cabresto Dam. It's not going to affect the acequias. I'm gonna go out and say that, but there's still going to be an analysis that the state engineer has to do when this application is filed. So what I wanted to do is again show this because when you're talking in sort of abstract, you're kind of going, what's happening? And if I was in your place, maybe I wouldn't be as vocal, but I would be concerned too, right? I would say, okay, what are you guys doing? But what this does, it pictorially shows you what the plan is. And I think with respect to at least this 1 mile radius, there's really no groundwater rights that are going to be affected other than those domestic wells potentially, and those can be accounted for. And so I'm about done here, and we can open it up for more questions. But again, I want to reiterate this, the bottom line, and now I was going to provide time for questions. But again, like green hydrogen production, I'm not going to harm your water rights. There's strong checks, public processes, and you have the right to participate, and you will be given that right. So I'm going to stop there. maybe if I had gone through everything at the beginning, maybe we wouldn't have had so many questions, but anyway,
Let's start with people that haven't spoken yet. So let's see, hands up, this fellow right here.
I have spoken, but I'm.
Oh, you have, okay, then let's go.
So what got my attention is, this is for everybody. Is this going to affect the level of domestic wells? In other words, in Sunshine Valley, is our water table going to unnaturally drop?
and that's the analysis that the state engineer will do. They'll look at the drawdown effect of that well, pumping it at initially 47 acre feet a year. What they'll probably do if it's permitted at 100, they'll put the large amount in, and they'll say, okay, 100 feet a year for the next 20 years. This is going to be the drawdown effect. So when a pump pumps water, it draws down like this, and it kind of goes this way, and depending on where that intersects other pumps is what your potential impairment could be. That analysis will be done by the state engineer's
Right
office.
back here, then Jason, and we're going to.
You described the process, the whole process, but the timing, once that analysis is released, how much time do people have to study that analysis? Is there a minimum amount of time before you can have?
You do get to see it. You're making stories up over there. You get to see it. And so,
Let's respect his question, please.
So the process, and that's why when I caveated the process, I said the earliest it can happen is 6 to 8 months, because all the analysis and everything has to be done. If it gets protested, it could take 2 to 3 years, and it's in the hands of the hearing examiner at the state engineer's office that sets the schedule for discovery, for hearings, and all that whole process and how that happens. And then you could request an expedited hearing to get the parties together. And typically what happens is the parties would get together and go, you know what, this really is not causing the impairment we thought, or it's causing more impairment than we thought. And in that case, the state engineer would deny the permit. But if but it'll answer those questions. So,
Yeah, there were two parts to that. There's the analysis. The analysis, how is that released to the public? How do they see that? And then how much time do they have to respond?
so it's released through the hearing officer's hearing process. So the hearing will happen. The hearing will happen, right? And typically what's going to happen is the hearing officer has to, so there's a Chinese wall between the state engineer and his general counsel and the hearing unit. So the hearing unit's working with Water Rights Division. They do the whole analysis and they look for impairment. Then they take into consideration the protesters and everything else. The hearing examiner sets a hearing. They hear the case on the facts, and they let them present the facts. The hearing officer writes up a recommendation to the state engineer. That recommendation, whether it's approval, denial, or maybe delay because we don't have enough information, we need another hearing, whatever, that goes to the state engineer's office. The state engineer with his general counsel, and as state engineer, I've been through hundreds of these things. If the answers weren't there, I would send them back and say, look, this is not a clearly written hearing recommendation. And there were 3 or 4 iterations sometimes. That's why I said 6 to 8 would be an application that's not protested, 6 to 8 months. 2 to 3 years is because it can go through those iterations. So,
But again, how much
Okay,
time
so-
from the time they see it, from the time the public can see it?
The public doesn't get to see it, that's the point. Although they are saying, I'm not listening.
Okay, wait, it's his question.
That's what
He's right. He's right. She's not a voter, she's not a voter, she's right. Jason.
oh, sure, thank you.
By the way, we're also finding out this information with this water analysis. Okay, they're gonna do the water analysis. Okay, can we just ask Kit Carson? You're gonna probably be one of the first ones to find out conclusion of the results of the water analysis, can we ask Kit Carson to share the water analysis with the community? Would that be possible?
It's all tied up in the state engineer's office.
No, because it's gonna be made public, right? It's gonna be made public. But you'll.
The hearings are open to anybody. You can go in and hear it, and it, right, right.
So I'm asking Kit Carson, can Kit Carson, once they find out the results, can you share it with the public?
This is a transparent process, there's nothing that we're trying to.
And will that hearing be recorded?
So let's go to this lady, and then yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So I think many people here are worried about water, and the research I've done on the internet extensively, as it's far and away, everybody says if you don't put hydrogen plants in places that you're not next to a large body of water. So I'm just saying that for those of us researching it, and I'm not just, this is first we think, but this is set all over the place. So I came here and spent every last penny of my hard-earned money, most of my life, to build this little awkward place in Sunshine Valley. To someday pass away, right on my land. So my concern, selfishly, is that I spent a whole lot of money digging them out, and it took me so much to get there, and it's so great to be part of this community. What happens to people, those of us who live out there or anywhere, but especially because I don't understand the difference between documented and undocumented rights. So this is part of why I don't ask questions a lot.
So I hear you, and I can understand your concern for the impact or potential. Let me put it this way, I live here in Questa and I farm. Between the Cabresto and the Citizen Ditch, I own close to 100 acres of surface water rights. Okay? And this ditch, the Danny runs it on the ditch down here. I'm not concerned about the impact of this project to my surface water rights.
But I don't.
So that's for the record, I own that many water rights, and I'm not concerned.
But what about me, it's surface rights like a well?
No, groundwater is surface, groundwater.
Surface water is the second. Okay? So I just take that so that it's clear, right?
Can you help me out?
I'm as potentially impacted as anybody else. Okay, Danny's next.
I'm not done.
Okay. Go ahead, let's go here. Yes, sir.
So I'm not gonna give my question, so you're not gonna answer my question?
So what is the question?
The question is very simple, you guys explained a lot of complicated stuff, this is a very basic, like sixth graders asking questions. Am I going to have problems with my existing well, because all of those water rights are going from Sunshine Valley to this project? Is that going to look like lower the table?
So her question, I think, John, is because you reference Sunshine Valley water.
So
rights.
those are the water rights that Chevron has. Okay, so they're part of their Chevron's portfolio.
And they haven't been.
So, no, they've used them at the mine. So they had to go through an application process to get them at the mine and use them. That's where they used, that's where they took the rights from. So, so what we're doing is sort of confusing where your location is in Sunshine Valley to even where this new well is gonna be. This new well is gonna be right over here. This well is gonna be way over here, okay? Can you see my pointer on here? This is the well that's gonna be used. So those water rights that Chevron has, that came from Chevron, Sunshine Valley, are essentially going from Chevron now to a new place of use, which is this well here.
What rights does that well have? How many water rights is it
That
allocated to that well?
there are none that I am aware of.
So
They're just Chevron. They're Chevron. So it may be that they're using some of their.
I think they have to, because they're using that.
Okay, they're using that. So we need to find that out probably.
Danny Garcia, you're next.
Okay, I agree with Bobby that surface water rights, it's a different water right, like the Cabresto irrigation water rights, it's a surface permit. Correct. SP. The citizens, that's a surface declaration. The one that I'm concerned on is the RG Crystals, which is the Rio Grande subsurface.
Underground basin.
Underground, that's all this area here. I'll give you a perfect example, like, when we started FKD on well number, what was it? How much deeper did that well go? My father-in-law has property that he purchased, he had a well drilled in '69. That well, the water depth was 40 feet. Now you go with a physiometer, it's 75 feet before it hits the water table. So like this one was cavitating. Another example is like the Village of Questa, the Chevron gave him 127 acre feet. They haven't even applied that to be able to pull out of the wells. So like my brother in Cerro, he has a well, RG also. My nephew on, Vete has a well. And I see that it's giving and another thing is like, the compressor irrigation has a priority date of 1815. The Citizens has it of 1915. The Llano Irrigation Company has it 100 years after. That's just for irrigating. And within the last 5 years, we haven't been able to give Llano any water, and that's how we replenish our aquifer. So I don't think we're really benefiting.
So what I would say to that, Danny, yeah, go
Also, like, I know when they had to drill a new well, I'm the adjutant for Questa Village. So on the building, we used to get a bill of like $94 a month. Whether we use 1 gallon, or we don't use it that month, or we use, that's the minimum. Now, it used to be like $94. The bill now is $164 a month for the water, sewer, and trash, and that's how it goes. So if somebody said they paid to get that well done and that, every consumer paid the price, or is paying the price. So now if you're saying you're allocated 127 acre feet, 127 acre feet, that's 325,851 gallons per 1 acre foot. So how many millions of gallons? 43 million gallons is going to start drawing over here by the high school, not including the new, this RG. And
This one here.
when was that well drilled?
When was it drilled? I don't know, I can look it up. I might have it in my.
And what was the specific purpose? You said it's specific purpose, specific location, and a specific point of diversion.
Right. Yeah, it's owned by Chevron, so whatever they use it for, but
But anytime there's
One of the things they're using it for is, dust suppression.
Dust suppression.
okay, dust suppression, is that replenishing the aquifer?
No.
No,
but, okay, so just a general question. So everything you said is well taken and understood, right? And so what happens is the state engineer will look at those two applications that I told you that were filed, the 127 and the other one, because they're the 145 for the mutual domestics. They'll throw that in their model and say, okay, we're pumping from here for how much? So there's going to be a drawdown effect from here. There's going to be a drawdown effect from this other one, and then from the new one, it's all cumulative. They'll analyze everything. So here's one thing I'll say generally within the state of New Mexico. You mentioned all surface water is fully appropriated, right? Groundwater is supplemental a lot of times to surface water supply. Everybody needs a permit from the groundwater. The point is that groundwater everywhere in the state of New Mexico is not being replenished. We as a state are mining our aquifers. But there's got to be a reasonable allowance of that mining, and it's based upon an available aquifer thickness. So what the state engineer does, they look at an aquifer thickness that's available, and they say, okay, within a 40-year pumping, if it drops more than 2 feet in 40 years, then we're considering that as impairment. And so there's criteria that they use, but just let me say generally, people all over the state are having to deepen their wells because water, you only go as deep as you need to, but the groundwater is going down, and that happens in all the domestics. So what happens in a case like this is that if you're impaired, your domestic well starts going down and you need to redo it, there's a process in place by filing a protest that says, okay, you know what, we're gonna allow this application to go through, but if the well goes down X amount of feet, you guys need to help pay for the going down. But people have to do that everywhere anyway. I mean, we're in a state that's only 2 million people. We're the most responsible state in the West on how we manage our water conjunctively. I mean,
We're gonna move on. Juan, and then there's.
Earlier slide you showed it was like 1,400 acre feet treated as Chevron. Right?
yeah, or 13 something.
Has there been any thought about utilizing that water?
Wait.
Either right under the Red River or even right at that site, so there would be no change anyway.
Yeah, there is some thought. In fact, Luis and I were talking about it before the meeting. It's like, hey, that might be a better use of that water to be able to clean that and use it. And so that'll be in future discussions, but it's all about what Chevron's willing to do and what happens. But yeah, I think that's an option.
I don't think you can use.
Anything else with fund water? You may be right. Okay, and that did come up at some point. Yes, sir.
I have a technical question about those graphs you were just showing about the wells. With the wells, you showed a bunch of graphs of wells owned by Chevron, right there.
These, yeah.
Yeah, those. And then before that, there's 4 private wells, like private citizen wells.
Yeah.
Those. So most of the water is going to come from Chevron's wells, right? And then those are private citizens who have given permission to use their wells for it too.
No, these are just so what I did was in this map. So this map here, what I did was the point of diversion, this RG 1417, where the anticipated point of diversion is going to be for this. We did a 1 mile circumference to see how many wells were in that 1 mile circumference. And that's what happened. So there's 4 domestic wells. The rest of them are monitoring wells and piezometers that show up in the database. And so there's only 4 domestic wells that are in there.
In the space that.
In that 1 mile radius,
To be used for the project.
Okay.
And also, I have one more if you want.
Let's see who has the scope.
I just have one more. I think the main issue people are concerned about here is that you're saying you're getting all these water rights. You know, you're obtaining all these water rights for this project to make it all legal. But I think the big concern is how much water is actually in the ground, and the more water you use, we're not getting more, right? So the main issue is like in 10, 20 years, when we're using more water for this big project, we're gonna have less water overall.
No,
in the
sir,
water
that's
table, right?
that's the trade-off that the state engineer looks at: responsible groundwater development and withdrawals, right? And what's available. I mean, you have to put criteria together to allow for reasonable development.
Did you talk about adjudicated rights, adjudicated versus?
No, but adjudicated water right is the highest level of a water right ownership, and it goes down to beneficial use if you don't have an actual adjudicated
So the
water
rights
right.
we're talking about
Are adjudicated, they're adjudicated. So that's the highest level.
Could we expect in like in 20, 20, however many years, our water bills to go up if there's less water in the area overall?
Well, what happens around the state? What happens around the state is people have to go deeper, and the electricity cost goes up a little bit because they've got to pump from a deeper.
Okay, let's move on. We're gonna give the elected official there, Daryl, I think you're there. No, Daryl, here, rather than what? Did you want to go Okay, elected official first, okay.
So John, I have a question. Since this well is already existing, you just kind of brought it up with adjudicated rights, right? This one's already been approved by the state engineer for Chevron to use it consumptively, so theoretically speaking, Chevron tomorrow can start pumping water out of that well without us having.
Well, they could, Well, it's not, at least in the database, it's not show how much it's, there's not a quantity. And so we know it can pump 600 gallons per minute. So it'd be a good well to transfer water rights in. And it's the furthest away from all the other, so it makes sense. It's only a mile from the site. It's furthest away from other users. So it makes sense to use it. But in order for them, we'd have to look back and see what they're actually approved to pump from that well. And the number didn't show in the database. So I'm feeling that he said they're using it for dust suppression. They're not using it for commercial purposes that I know of.
Okay. What?
Well, you know, all this is superficial. Water flows in gravity, except in life. But why don't you show us the aquifer? See, because the aquifer is the one that's being drawn down from these wells, and it's gonna suck up your Sunshine Valley wells because you're upstream. And so if the water surface, if the water's groundwater, it follows gravity, and it's all going for the Rio Grande and going south. So if you would show the aquifer, and you would show the level, and you would show 20 million gallons being drawn down every year for 5 years, that's 100 million gallons. And being used to
No,
exactly.
I heard this question. I'm trying to help. I'm trying to answer Mark's question. There was a study that was done, I think I received by, Mexico Tech. That did a hydrology study of the Questa aquifer. There's a study out there, I can find that, John, if you could look for it. There's a study that shows the aquifer here and how it flows. And I think the way it flows, from what I remember about that presentation, the aquifer, this being south here, this being west, I think that aquifer comes through the valley, going southwest.
Yes. And Sunshine Valley is up there.
That's a different aquifer.
No, it's all.
It's a different aquifer, that's close to Rio Grande.
Right, so always supposed to do that.
Yeah, all close to Rio Grande.
Sucking up 20 million gallons a year or 5 years, 100 million gallons from nothing, you're gonna be going down without recharge. Because there is no snow. So the aquifer is not being recharged, you're right, John. That it's being drawn down and it's not gonna be filled up, especially if you use 20 million gallons a year.
So let me just say this, I think John was very good about explaining the process. And we are going to apply for a permit to transfer water rights to that well. And there's going to be a permit application that will go through a process, and the process will show the impacts and it will determine if there is any impairment. Okay? And so what I will say on behalf of the co-op, if there is impairment, we're not going to use it because it's going to impair the water. If it doesn't show impairment, we're going to pursue it so that we can continue with what we need for this project. So it's as simple as that. I'm not here, I live in this community. We do not want to impair the water table. If it shows it's going to, then we'll look at another way of doing this. But our belief, and based on our consultant and other studies, is that it's not going to impair okay? Not going to impair the water. So let's see, we're going to go Daryl, we'll go Danny, and we'll get Slade, and then I think we've gone on it for about an hour and a half, 2 hours.
So I've had other calls from people, from the constituents in Questa, wanting to know how you guys are moving forward on the project in June, when we haven't even figured out where the water's coming from, if it's been approved, not been approved. You know, that's a concern, and that's coming from Kit Carson, because I got this text from Kit Carson, and I also see it on Channel 7 and everybody else. And who's releasing that? You guys, Kit Carson's releasing that to the news media.
So there was a release, we just want to address it.
So you guys are releasing that?
Yes, Kit Carson's releasing it.
Okay.
And it's actually to keep the community informed on where we're at. And, you know, it's several processes in this project. And as Chairman
I mentioned we don't want to run to that. The first process is the solar. So we need to build the solar facility first, so there's time on every aspect. The water comes in at the end of the project, when this gentleman correctly said the electrolyzers start to be put into service. So there is a process when that project is state. The attempt is to continue to notify the members and facilitate some feedback on the project.
So I have a follow-up just because you said the solar project, that's been approved too by who? You said you're gonna groundbreak on the solar project, doesn't the village gonna borrow a $50 million loan to try to build this facility, so we will just, so has the village made a decision as far as we're going forward with the solar project?
So actually, on the, as a council, before you're on council, we have to, put our legislative requests in every year. We have to vote on an ICIP, and we've had the village solar project on ICIP for $50 million for the last 3 years running straight. So it has been voted on, that's something voted on and approved by the council.
We can get minutes to that.
Danny, you had your hand up, and then.
My concern is, we don't have the water transferred yet. Why proceed with anything if the water not going to be there?
Because we're confident this will be. Simple as that.
Why can't we just research that we can recycle the water, and then all of this could go away? Nobody would be concerned. The water can be recycled from the fuel cells. It's a fact, it's a technological fact.
Thank you, you didn't have a hand up on that.
Well, yes, I have a hand.
Okay, so I just, thank you, sir, for calling on me again. I did not mean, John, to derail things earlier. I truly am trying to get education on the process because I kept asking the question of when can the public be involved. You continue to tell me a few times that I did not listen to you. I beg to differ, I listened. I understand the process, and what I'm understanding is that you need to be a part of that hearing to get the information from the studies. But then Mayor stepped in and he said, maybe this is gonna help you. Because he said, when they are going to move that 127 acre water rights from Sunshine Valley that they have already applied for, that is pending in process, that when that comes through, that there is going to be a public hearing, or there's a public hearing before I mean, you're saying that that's now our chance to get some public input and to see some water, but quite honestly, straight up, I came here, I'm a school teacher, I work long hours, I have a lot to do, I come to every single one of these meetings, and I listen, I take notes, and I'm still not getting any answers on when and how the public gets to be a part of hearing results of studies or saying, we want this, please, to be looked at. Because that would be the normal democratic process if we were not in a wait, no, let me finish, please, sir. I know, but why can I not finish? So what? I have a lot more to say.
Okay, well, we're going to conclude.
You are losing total. Like, this is not okay. You just shut me up because you don't want to know what I say. I'm not rambling. You are being misogynistic and belittling by telling one educated, vocal woman in here to just tell me that you don't want to hear what I have to say. I'm rambling and not listening. Let that be on the record. That is disrespectful to that. You are lighting a fire, sir, that you should not be lighting. And I'll tell you something. You told us this man was neutral. You introduced him as being neutral. His language and everything, none of it was neutral. By him shutting me up right now, there's been a fire lit. This is unacceptable. You have still not answered me. When is there public input on what will be the water analysis, which is what everybody came here tonight? And I'm sorry, you can call me crazy, call me whatever you want to call me. I don't care.
Good.
Because I'm concerned about the water, the longevity, not just when, are you, where you live, that's not where they're pulling the rights from.
Okay, George, you have a seat. I would like to speak for a minute. Regarding the water?
You guys started big here tonight with this. You not allowing me to speak, that is disrespectful. And there will be community backlash for all of that.
So, I just wanted to make, thank you all. I just wanted to make a couple of points. I feel fine. There's a long time number of communities. I think this, I feel like if I saw $100 bill on the middle of the road, and I saw somebody going for it, and a truck coming, I feel like I'm just saying, look out, here comes a truck. That's the way I feel about this project. I think this project is insane. And if anybody looked in the paper last week at this illustration about the project, it's showing that you use approximately 50 kilowatts of electricity to produce hydrogen, and then you use that hydrogen to produce 20 kilowatts of electricity. That doesn't make any sense, right? It's like if you deposited $5,000 in the bank, and then a few months later you give you $2,000. Not a big deal, right?
But we were just told it's gonna work. You said
Well,
you're so sure it's
listen.
gonna work.
Yeah,
And you know, I don't know if you had any say, but
Well,
continue, please.
you do have to say, oh, I think you do. I think it doesn't make any sense. It does make sense, like I know that some members of the council and the co-op went to Georgia to a green hydrogen plant. That plant makes green hydrogen, but they use it directly for energy. They don't make electricity with it. And I did a fair amount of searching, and there are green hydrogen plants, not a hell of a lot, but the ones that they have, they use the hydrogen for energy. I couldn't find one that uses it to make electricity. And if you take all the energy in the country, that's like fossil fuel, petroleum, propane, natural gas, nuclear, renewables, and hydrogen. Hydrogen is 1% of the energy production in the country. And of that 1%, only less than 4% is green hydrogen. I don't quite understand this project. I know that the co-ops behind it, and I understand that it's very tempting. That's why I use the analogy of the $100 bill in the street. There's this $200+ million that's available to fund the project. Very tempting. But I think it's a loser for this community. And I'd like everybody.
George, I did visit that Georgia plant, and you're actually incorrect. They are using electricity on that plant.
They're producing electricity.
No, they're not. But
That's what I'm saying.
They're taking it off the grid.
Yeah,
So that's what makes this project unique. That's why it's a green project, because
It is,
we're
I
using
agree
green
with you.
energy and not green energy.
So
So that's the difference. They're using non-green energy, but we're using green energy.
Well, I thought the project in Georgia was a renewable project.
It's a renewable hydrogen part, but they're not using, if I'm not mistaken.
Right, they don't use
They're taking it off the
it.
grid.
That's my point.
They're taking electricity off the grid, Georgia.
Yeah, they produce the hydrogen with renewable, but then they use the hydrogen. And the other thing about, the other point about the hydrogen project has been presented that it can be stored, the hydrogen can be stored, and then if we need electricity during a blackout or whatever, we can use that to produce electricity. That's true, except from what I can tell, the only places where they do store the hydrogen don't have huge underground caves where they store it. If you have to have man-made storage containers, it's not viable because the hydrogen is very corrosive, flammable, et cetera. So it's costly to have storage containers for the hydrogen. Am I right, Mr. Reyes?
Well, these, the above
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, because they won't be underground, they'll be above ground. What I'm saying is, above ground storage is very costly. The only ones I was able to discover where they store hydrogen and below ground storage, like natural caverns, so forth, which is another negative.
But I think there's a bunch of facilities that do have above ground hydrogen, as you mentioned, the green hydrogen that's used for energy, they store that. above ground.
Right. But they have the hydrogen plants close to where they're using the energy, like your steel plant and a cement plant and fertilizer.
Right, there'll be a substation built on the site. So the hydrogen will be created, stored, then put through either like fuel cell. And then that creates electricity, goes to the substation, and then it's delivered to the members via the distribution or the transmission.
Yeah, but the point is, it's inefficient to make electricity with hydrogen. It would be more efficient. I know that the problem is the $200+ million available to build renewables.
George, let me answer that. So it may be inefficient, but it's creating an opportunity for Village of Questa to generate solar energy and a revenue source for the general fund of the village. That's the reason for the solar component. We could buy this power from a solar plant in Jicaria. We could use some of the money we Samaya solar, but we've chosen to do it this way so that the Village of Questa can take advantage of this opportunity to generate power and sell it to the co-op to run the hydrogen plant. That's the reason for it.
You're saying that's the advantage to the village?
Yes.
Is that they can,
They're going to generate a revenue stream that's going to go into their general fund, selling the power generated by solar energy. That's why we're doing that.
it's a way of moving money around and everybody gets a piece of it.
Yeah, and Village of Questa gets a piece of pie.
But however, I think it's a bad idea because it's so damn inefficient. Like it seems insane to just get 40% of the electricity used. Doesn't make any sense.
And that's a beauty of it, like, we're here to debate the issues. You know, I respect her opinion, I respect the lanes for herself, as mad as she got, I respect her opinion. I respect everybody else's, I think it's a matter of listening to everybody, you respect ours, we respect yours.
I kind of feel like I'm sympathetic to her, the fact that she left, I felt like it was a bit of misogyny, her being a woman, and kind of, she wasn't paying attention. So
She took over the meeting, and it wasn't fair to everybody else was.
You weren't, he wasn't answering her question.
You know, so let me address that. And I hate when the meetings evolve. And I've been in water meetings forever, so this is not untypical. But there is a respect there. But what I want to say is the process tonight is, I think it's a little bit confusing to some people because that's not like a Water Quality Control Commission hearing or another hearing where you give somebody a certain amount of time to talk, either, that's either supporting or against it. What I was doing tonight was saying, hey, there's an administrative process that the state engineer will go through. And you guys are all going to be involved because the state engineer has to put a notice out that they're going to transfer water rights, a change in place and purpose of use. It has to go to a public notice. We extended the law so that you have 70 days to go. Everybody, so what I'm trying to say is, you can say that I didn't answer your question.
No, not mine, hers.
But we did answer, but she didn't listen. And I would rather take
Shouldn't be criticizing somebody
I would
who's not here.
I would rather be on one-on-one, you're right, I would rather
You
be
should
on
not
one-on-one.
criticize somebody when they're not here to defend themselves.
Well, that part of it's leading to our meeting, and I would like to talk about it afterwards. But the point here is, there's a process in place that protects you guys. And you're involved immediately when the application gets filed, you are involved because a notice is provided. And so there's going to be an analysis done, and there's a whole hearing process that happens. And if you still aren't happy, then you can appeal it to district courts and beyond. So the point is.
Will that analysis be released publicly?
Pardon me?
Will that analysis be released as a public document?
The analysis.
We can
will be
download?
I'm sure you can get it, I'm sure we can get it. It's not a typical process because it's an administrative hearing. And the state engineer denies it or approves it, then there's gonna be an aggrieved party, and then there'll be another hearing. So the analysis will come forward. It's just, what we're trying to do tonight is explain that there is a process for your protections out there, and it's all in statutes. And so that's gonna happen. And, like I said, you know, you get so many chances to voice your opinion and everything else. I mean, there's other official meetings, like the Water Quality Control Commission meeting, there's Interstate Stream Commission meeting, there's all these meetings where you can come in and actually voice your opinion. This was a public service that we were trying to provide to give you guys
But you
information.
could have,
That's what it was.
You could have de-escalated, you just said to her, I'll personally email or text you every time there's a meeting that's discussed. You'll know that.
So,
It felt like you were just talking around it.
I wasn't.
Okay.
I wasn't.
So if anybody would like the presentation that you did, we can arrange to get you a copy of that. So if you do talk to Luis and you can arrange to get it, that concludes it. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Questions?
Oh, look at that water coming out of it. It's even in the paper.
That was exciting. So did I.
But they don't even have knowledge yet.
My main concern in the beginning was, like, don't you think Kit Carson should be recording this? Yeah. They should have their own dedicated photographer. Like, of course, we're gonna be there, we're gonna be here too, recording it ourselves, but they should also have their own recording. I mean, yeah, they'll put out a press release, but they should actually record. Yeah, he was.
She was talking a lot. She was trying to get to her point, and they just kept cutting her off. And they're like, it's not fair to everybody, but she's asking questions that we're all thinking.
And I was trying to back her up, like, hey, are you gonna release? Will the hearing be recorded, or will it just be the people who are there hear it themselves? Like, there's no, I don't think there's no reason why every organization, especially in public service, should have a dedicated videographer to record everything. I don't know. Just like what we're doing. Like, I don't know.
This is crazy. I thought this would be super fucking boring.
Oh yeah, I'm pumped up now.
Honestly, part of the.
How do we ask the question? Who do we ask? No, but here's the question, because, and I know you post this, so that's why.
I'm live right now. I'm recording now. You want to
How
be
do you
on?
get I'm interested in being on a list where we all can be, whether the newspaper does it or tells us when the hearing is, when we can have access and information. And maybe prepare before the hearing.
Most direct way would be to get in touch with Reyes, get on his email list, his Kit Carson email list.
Okay, sorry, I didn't.
No, you're fine. ask for his, probably ask his numbers on on the Kit Carson website. You can just call his office.
Okay.
And
But don't you
that's the
think
best.
that we should all be, it maybe should be posted in the paper for the community?
Yeah. The public hearing. I'm freelance with House News. I'll write about it.
That's why I'm asking you.
Plus, News was also here, so they'll be in both papers.
So each time, we're not gonna miss it. It's gonna, as long as we're checking the paper. Right?
Yeah, but if you want a copy of that presentation, talk to him. And give him your email. And that's what,
Seems like it
if all of
should be
us,
easier, right? Yeah, I'll do it.
personally, I think my recording's gonna be on YouTube. I'm on Facebook. I publish everything.
Right.
Personally, I think they should have a dedicated videographer.
They should have what?
They should have a dedicated videographer, Kit Carson, to record all their meetings. There's no reason why every organization should have a dedicated videographer to record their meeting. Yeah, but definitely talk to him.
Okay,
Give me your email address, he'll send you.
okay. All right, thank you.
So you have collecting email addresses, sir, for the presentation? Yeah. I'd like a copy of that. Or like a copy of the. Okay. Are you collecting email addresses? Are you collecting email addresses to send out?
Oh, the presentation?
Yeah, I would like a copy of it.
Yeah, I'll have you send it to me.
Okay. I don't. I'll wait. I'll just have to write down for you. I've given you guys my. I've given my email address before, but I'll just give it to you.
I think
I just want a copy of that presentation. And then my name, Dylan Crabb. You might know that my writing is horrible, but my email is. Yeah. Your email is Michael. That would be sorry.
I could answer, I don't know the state engineer. I would think.
Could I get on a list and have somebody?
My main concern is I'm hearing all future-based language, like we will be doing this, we're confident, and I think that's what most people are angry about, like the fact that it's not really for sure yet.
You know what, it's I'll tell you what, water is so contentious. It's, I feel like if I was in this community, I'd probably be answering the questions too, but which I have the perspective of the entire state of New Mexico. I have the perspective of working with tribal water rights and global water rights and private water rights and the shortages on the Colorado system, the people that we've had to cut off that have 1,800 priority dates in Rio Chama. So, I mean, I've got this global perspective on the entire state and how we try to protect existing water rights as best we can.
To be clear, you used to be with OSC, but not now.
No, and I'm not now. So I'm just I'm a consultant. I work for an engineering company on water resources. But what I'm trying to do is explain the process, right? 'Cause I work for 4 different governors, and so water is like this everywhere, right? We don't have enough of it. We don't have enough of it.
And I think that's why we're all concerned.
Yes.
Starting this huge project to improve our power grid, but do we really need this? Is it worth the water?
Yeah. And what I tried to show is 47 acre feet. You know what a golf course up here, but a green hydrogen project would be much more reasonable and helpful than something else, right? And so there's trade-offs. There's always trade-offs. And so one of the things that's really important is the concept of available groundwater. And if you said, oh, we're not going to allow any, and I say we, the state engineer, what they look at, they're going to say, okay, if I'm going to allow 100 foot depth of available groundwater, and it's going to go down 2% a year, 2.5% a year, that's a 40-year supply. Okay,
So
that's when it exceeds that, then that's considered impairment. But you can't, you can't derive, if you were to say, hey, no impairment, nobody could do anything. It would be, all the economies would grind to a halt.
So right now, that's the,
So there's standards, there's guidelines and standards that the state engineer uses to evaluate impairments. And so if you have a certain water column, so many feet deep, and then I'm thinking about this like we're stream different, but if you go like to the Estancia Basin where you don't have a river that runs through the Estancia Basin, we when I was state engineer, we put a critical management area in place that said, okay, these are your restrictions. In this particular area, no new appropriations. We're not allowing new appropriations here. We only allow for transfer of existing water rights into a new point of diversion. But you have to prove that you're not going to impair anybody's water rights. So the tests are there, the state engineers there to protect it, and so they manage what they say conjunctively: surface water supply, groundwater supply. And what gives me a little bit of comfort on the surface water supply is you have Cabresto Dam that generates water, and even if you're not getting a full supply of water every year, it's because we have a surface drought, right? We're in a drought, so we're suffering droughts. So people have to share shortages on the surface water supply. But that with surface water gets down the groundwater, the drawdown effect on the groundwater. It's unlikely it's going to reach that surface water supply to affect it, because there's an immediate response from the dam to get the water.
so as long as the wells don't exceed a certain feet,
Yeah.
there should be that should be enough to keep overall water table intact.
Yeah, at least it's manageable, right? So it's going down. Hey, is it going down 2 feet a year? Yeah, it's going down 2 feet a year, but it's manageable. And at some point,
And what's that maximum depth? 40, you said 40 feet?
it's typically about when you're looking at 40 feet. It's about if you have a 100-foot water column of water, then you allow for a 2 foot 2 foot depth per year. Like a 2 foot declination of the water supply is okay with the state. If it's less than 2 feet, it's okay. And there's guidelines that are published on the state engineer's website that kind of go through all this stuff. And so it's complicated, but the state engineer has to,
That's why I'm
they have to do models. Yeah.
just trying to get this all straight.
Yeah. Well, and it's, I've spent a career at it, and it's,
I do think there was a better way you could handle. I think there was a better way to handle the wound.
well, you know what, and it wasn't me. I didn't jump in.
I think it was both of you, really. But it's in the past now. We can't do anything about it.
But you know what, if it was my meeting, I would handle it differently. I said, hey, let's talk afterwards or whatever. And I'm not the one that cut her off. I didn't cut her off. I never cut people off. That was me. It was me that cut her off.
And what was your name?
John D'Antonio.
John D'Antonio.
Yeah. It's on my
Consultant.
presentation.
Okay.
It's on my presentation.
Yeah, I gave him my email. Yeah.
Okay. So you did that. Yes.
Just trying to get it.
Yeah. Very, well, thanks for being here. And hopefully we can.
And the
We're gonna do the
upcoming
right thing. Yeah.
the upcoming hearing and the environmental assessments. When can we expect that to be made public?
Those are in my. I'm just
Within 6 months, or I'm still recording you.
I don't know. Those you'd have to ask. You'd have to ask him.
But they will be made public on
Well, I'm sure.
OSC Met website.
Oh, the OSC stuff. They don't put stuff on the website. Not that kind of stuff on the website. Because it's
So public
individual
Carson will
things.
publish it.
But you'll go to a hearing and they'll talk about it and they'll make a decision on it. And so we can probably ask the Water Rights Division, say, hey, can you give us a copy of your analysis?
Well, that's I think that's what she was angry about. Like, will those public meetings be recorded? Like, yeah, the public can show up and record it themselves, but will
She'll be invited if she's appropriate.
No, but what I'm meaning is, well, it would help if Kit Carson themselves had their own dedicated videographer to record it, to record these hearings.
And then we
See, these are just
Instead of-
public, these are just public information meetings. It's not like they're required, it's not like it's a hearing, like I said before, a commission or something else, or even a city commission or county.
Even if it's not required to record these meetings, it would help. Like, it would show some initiative on Kit Carson's part, or ORC's, whoever's in charge of these meetings, to, hey, we're going to record the meetings for you, so you can watch it later on your own time. So it's not just whoever shows up to the meetings, and they have to go by memory or use their own recording devices. But I think that was the main issue with why. I think that was mainly why she was mad.
Well,
I don't know, but
I think she completed processes.
but regardless, I am happy I'm happy this meeting was here. Thank you for being.
Sure. You're welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah.
You live here in Questa?
Yeah, I live here. I was outside of town, but basically Questa. I better get going.
Yeah, I gotta get back out.
Thank you.
Worked on the restoration of solar.
But I brought her down, she came back to me and told me.